Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Rashmi, for the beautiful Mangalacharan recital. So today we have among us Vraj Kishori Devi Dasi. Mataji joins us as a participant, and she also joins us on Thursdays as our mentor, and she tells us delightful stories. And this time we have requested Mataji to tell us about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are new to this mission, and I think it is important that we learn about, we know who Lord Chaitanya was. So Mataji is going to tell us stories from the beginning to the end. Just for those who have not seen Mataji before, um, she is from London and she serves at the Radha Londoneshwar Temple at Soho, and she's been attached to the movement since now 30 years. And she came to know about this movement through one of Prabhupada's books. So, glory of book distribution, we have such a strong, staunch devotee among ourselves. So, Hare Krishna Mataji, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mansi Ganga Mataji, Hare Krishna Mataji, and also the ISKCON devotees from the temple. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Prabhujis, so many. I miss you all. I hope you are all well and safe. Hare Krishna. Mataji, I hand over to you now.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Om Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesh Sunvavadi Paschata Destarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advait Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So today we are going to talk about Lord Chaitanya. I worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarian mercy flows like a river, inundating the entire universe. That is a verse from the Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrut. And today, as the Gaur Purnima is very close by, we are going to discuss Lord Chaitanya's birth and childhood pastimes and adolescent scholar pastimes until he began his Sankirtan movement. Okay, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world when there was a lot of transformations going on in the eastern part of the globe and the western part of the globe. In the West, in Europe, there was a renaissance going on. And the Christians wanted to spread their Christianity. So they were looking for new places to where to go and spread the Christianity. Amerigo Vespucci was busy discovering America. Vasco da Gama was busy finding route to India. There was a lot of things happening. Astronomers were exploring the heavens. In India as well, there were few changes taking place. The oppression by the ill-motivated members of the higher caste was extreme. The lower caste of members of the community, they were not treated properly. Then we had the invaders who were trying to crush Hinduism completely. There were so many different circumstances that we knew that Krishna would arrive. Jagannath Misra, he was a Brahmin living in Navadvip. Originally he came from East Bengal, which is Bangladesh at the moment. It used to be called East Bengal. Jagannath Misra was married to Sachi Devi, a very, very nice lady and very, very pious. And they lived in the Nadia district, in the Navadvip. Navadvip and Mayapur are very, very close by. It's just like, if it was London, it would be just one of the suburbs. It's so close. The West Bengal was ruled by Nawab Hussain Shah. He was a Muslim king, and even to think of a Sankirtan movement and to spread the Sankirtan movement, it was unthinkable in that time. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended on the earth. And before they had the children, Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi had 8 daughters who all died in their very, very young age. After that, they had a son called Vishwarup. And a few years later, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. His childhood name was Nimai. He was born under a neem tree. That's why they called him Nimai. Sachi Devi was very worried that because her children kept dying in a very early age, she thought she wanted to keep off the evil spirits and all that. So she had wanted to have a baby under a neem tree, so the evil spirits and everything won't come. On the 18th February 1486, it was a full moon day, and since the morning, Sachi Devi wasn't feeling well. But towards the evening, her 2 friends took her underneath the tree, neem tree, because it was a Purnima, and it was going to be an eclipse in the evening at the time. So many Hindus went to the Ganga nearby, and they were taking their dip and chanting Hari Hari and glorifying Ganga. There was some Muslims, they were trying to, they were mocking the Hindus, and they were going Hari Hari. And Lord Chaitanya was born. Now, Advait Acharya was in his 50s when Lord Chaitanya was born. But from his very young age, Advait Acharya, he was a pure devotee, and he could see the lower caste being oppressed by the Brahmin caste. They were not treating the lower caste like a human being. So many of them were in a demigod worship. They had forgotten who Krishna is. On top of that, there was a Muslim king, and he was trying to spread his own religion. So all that put together, Advait Acharya was quite concerned. He had a Shaligram Shila. So he would worship the Shaligram Shila with Ganga Jal and fresh Tulsi leaves every single day with no material desires. His only desire was, Lord Krishna, please do something. There's the Hindu religion is in a jeopardy. And Krishna listened to his prayers, and he descended on the earth. That's the external reason. The internal reason is Lord Chaitanya wanted to know how Radharani misses him and how Radharani loves him. He wanted to find out the rasa of Radharani's love. But that's the internal reason. But on the eclipse day, it was an eclipse, and he was born in the evening. This is one of the reasons we fast on Gaur Purnima Day, we fast until the evening. Then in the evening, we have a nice feast, because that's when Lord Chaitanya descended. Sachi Devi's father, he was a very renowned astrologer, and he looked up at the birth chart of the little baby. And immediately he knew that this is a supreme personality of Godhead. So he called him Vishwambar. Vishwa means the world, and Ambar is somebody who's dependent, somebody who is in charge, or somebody, the Vishwa is dependent on him. So he was called Vishwambar. But because he was born under a neem tree, most people would call him Nimai. It was a love name. And Sachi Mataji gave that name, Nimai. Even from very young age, Nimai wanted to spread his Sankirtan movement. So whenever he was crying, all the women around or Sachi Devi would come and chant Hari, 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 and little Nimai will stop crying. And then the women would think, ah, well, the baby has calmed down. So as soon as he calmed down, the women stopped saying Hari, Hari, the baby will start crying again. So he was getting them to chant Hari's name from the very beginning. Once Nimai was playing in his courtyard. He had just learned to sit, and he was playing in the courtyard, and a snake cropped up from somewhere. And little Nimai was playing with the snake. And people around came, Sachi Mata came, Mother Father, but Jagannath Mishra came, and they were very concerned, what's happening? But the snake, after playing, when Nimai stopped playing with the snake went round Nimai's body 2 or 3 times and then just slithered away. He was Anant Shesh. He had come to see the Lord. It was a good chance for him to see the Lord. Another time, little Nimai was playing in the court. Now he was a beautiful baby, and Mother Sachi, she really wanted to dress him, so she put some ankle bells on his feet and little bangles on his hand, and she necklace around his neck, and they were expensive jewelry, the real life gold and all that jewelry. And Nimai was playing quite comfortably, and these 2 thieves saw that the child is playing on his own. There's no one around. So one thief eyed the other. They picked up little Nimai, kidnapped him, and they started running as fast as they could. And they ran for miles around. And after everything had settled, they thought they were in a safe place. They saw a house, so they thought, well, let's go around the house and put the baby down, take away all his jewelry, and we disappear. Amazingly enough, they had been running everywhere, and they came to the same house as where little Nimai was playing. That was Nimai's house. Mother Sachi Devi had come out and not find a little Nimai, so she was concerned, and people around her also started looking around for Nimai. Where's he gone? Where's Nimai? And the thieves saw that, and they thought, oh, well, it's time to do a runner. So they put the baby down and ran away. That was their stealing done. As a child, little Nimai was quite mischievous. If he wanted something, he'd have to have it. Once on a full moon night, Nimai saw the moon, and it was so beautiful, so he decided he wanted a moon. And he was pestering Sachi Mata for the moon. And when he will not be consoled, Sachi Mata in the end went inside the house and got a picture of Lord Krishna. And he says, this is Krishna Chandra. You want a Chandra? Chandra means moon. This is Krishna Chandra. And little Nimai saw Krishna Chandra. He was completely pacified. He himself, he is a Gaura Chandra, because he was also born on a Poonam day. His Leela, Nimai's best Leela is when Jagannath Mishra had a guest in his house. Jagannath Mishra, he was very good at inviting the friends, sadhus in his house. In those days, some Brahmins would go from village to village preaching. And at night, they would stay at whichever Brahmin would host them. Jagannath Mishra, he would host any Brahmin if he had been preaching. So once a Brahmin came to their house, and he was going to stay there. So Jagannath Mishra gave him some bhoga, some rice and fruits and flowers and vegetables, all the stuff. The Brahmin had he had his own shaligrams. So Brahmin cooked his own naivedya for shaligrams. And as he was about to offer the shaligrams, the naivedya that he had cooked, little Nimai cropped up from somewhere, and he ate a little bit of the naivedya. And the Brahmin was in tears. The baby just came in, walked in, and before the naivedya was offered properly to shaligrams, he had touched it, and he had tasted a little bit as well. Jagannath Mishra was very, very apologetic. He said, I'll give you some more bhoga, which you can cook for Krishna. And he said he was going to keep Nimai under control. So the Brahmin, it was getting late in the night, but the Brahmin cooked everything all over again. He put it in a nice Naivedya thali and offered to the shaligrams. And somewhere little Nimai crawled on again, and he tasted a little bit of the Naivedya. Now this time Jagannath Mishra was angry with Nimai, and he assured the Brahmin that I'm going to lock him in the room. He will not come. Please cook again. I'm giving you the bhoga. You can, don't let Shaligram go hungry. So Brahmin took the third lot and he started cooking. And it was well past midnight when he had finished all the cooking and everything. And then he tried to offer bhoga and the naivedya to Krishna or Shaligram. From somewhere, even though the room was locked, little Nimai crawled in and he took a piece of the offering. And this time the Brahmin, he was very disappointed. He said, well, I think I made some offense. That's why the Lord doesn't want me to eat. And therefore, this is why he is not eating. He is allowing this little boy to eat instead. That's when the Nimai stood up, the baby Nimai. He said, don't you recognize me? I'm Lord Vishnu. The Brahmin looked up and he saw the four-armed form of Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. He had a conch, club, lotus, and a disc. The Brahmin was so pleased. He was so, he was in tears. But this Leela was kept quiet for a very, very long time. I think it's only when Vrindavan Das Thakur revealed it. Until then, not many people knew about this Leela. Now there's another Leela we can talk about. In the same place where they were living in the Nadia district, there were two Brahmin brothers, Hiranya and Jagdish. And it was an Ekadashi day, so they had an elaborate puja, and they made a long, lovely feast, and they had some chanting and all that. And they were thinking, well, now the offering has been made, let's sit down. It's Ekadashi, like today, it's Ekadashi. Young Nimai, he was long way away from where Hiranya and Jagdish lived. Somehow, Nimai had walked all the way to their house and he demanded some prasad. The two Brahmin brothers were very happy and they happily gave him some. That was a very nice gesture of the two Brahmin boys. And then the following Ekadashi, it was Ekadashi again. And young Nimai came and he bowed down to his Sachi Mata and he asked for a benediction. Mother, please don't cook grains on Ekadashi. We got so much other stuff to eat on Ekadashi if you don't want to fast, but please don't eat grains and don't cook grains. Sachi Mata was very pleased. She thought, oh yes, my little baby is telling me what to do, but this is a nice instruction. And she promised not to do it. As the time passed by, young Nimai began to grow, and he grew up old enough to go to school. His parents had already taught him the Sandhya Vandana, which the Prabhus must be doing. And he was told never to associate with irreligious people. So he was very good behavior in that way. And he was admitted into Gangadas Pandit's school. But he was brilliant. young Nimai was so brilliant. Very quickly, he learned Sanskrit grammar, logic, philosophy. He mastered all of it very, very quickly. During that time, his parents were looking for the teenage Vishwarup, his elder brother. He had become a teenager, so they were trying to arrange the Vishwarup's marriage. Vishwarup found out that my parents are trying to put me into the shackles of a household life. So he left home to become a sannyasi. And that was a very grieving moment for the family that he had left home. Even though he became a sannyasi, it was very upsetting. And then another grief befell on the family. Jagannath Mishra passed away. So young Nimai, he was quite young, but still the responsibility of maintaining the family came on him. He had already mastered the Sanskrit and logic and philosophy. So even though he was very young, he could open a school to make a living, and he could teach other children, which he began to do. He opened a school. He was so brilliant, he could get into debate with other scholars and defeat them in the way of logic, in philosophy. He was very, very advanced in that manner. It was very delightful for him to invite sadhus to his house for dinner, for prasadam. One day, a sannyasi called Ishwar Puri arrived in Mayapur. He had been, sannyasis, they always travel around. And one day he arrived in Mayapur. Nimai invited him to his house for prasad. By now, Nimai was a Nimai Pandit because he had become a scholar. And he was talking to Ishwar Puri about all the different shastras and all the scriptures. Ishwar Puri was quite impressed with it as well. Ishwar Puri had written a book, Krishna Karanamrut. So Ishwar Puri said to young Nimai, please have a look at this, my script I've written, and please edit it. In case I've made a mistake, can you give me some corrections? Now, young Nimai, he had begun to respect Ishwar Puri to such a degree that he thought that if in future, if I take initiation, I will take initiation from this sannyasi. So, and the sannyasi said to him, can you find some mistakes I've made? So Nimai replied, you are a great devotee, so there cannot be any mistakes in your expressions. Even if there is a flow, it will be superficial. So he didn't find any mistakes, or didn't look for the mistakes, but Nimai Pandit was a Pandit, and he could debate anyone with anyone, and he could defeat anyone. He became very famous within the Navadip educational families because he was quite scholarly and always debating with the passing by scholars. Because in those days, people who had a full control over Sanskrit and the scriptures, they would go from one village to another and talk to other scholars of the same village and have a debate, and they would prove their points. Now, one day, Keshav Kashmiri arrived. He arrived from Vrindavan, and he was a big scholar, and he would defeat anyone and everyone. So when people realized that Keshav Kashmiri was coming to Navadvip, a lot of these Pandits, they went out of Navadvip under the impression of excuse of I have to attend a wedding, I have to go there for a pilgrimage, and all different excuses. But they left Navadvip primarily because they didn't want to get into the debate with Keshav Kashmiri. But Nimai Pandit, he was busy running his school. He had to maintain his family. So he stayed, and Keshav Kashmiri had also heard about Nimai Pandit. Eventually, both met, and both talked, and they had a debate. Next day they had a debate, and Keshav Kashmiri had created a poem. Just by listening to it once, Nimai Pandit was able to find plenty of mistakes. And Keshav Kashmiri was surprised. How did I make this? And how did this boy find out? So at home, when he went in the evening, he was thinking, he was praying to Mother Saraswati that you have made me a scholar, and now this little boy, he was only a teenager, Nimai Pandit, and he looks like he's going to defeat me. Mother Saraswati actually appeared, and he told him that this person you are talking to and debating with is a supreme personality of Godhead. This Nimai Pandit, he is a supreme personality. So next day, when they settled down again for the debate, Keshav Kashmiri accepted his defeat, and then he left. Now another one, Nimai Pandit, because they needed help, and he was already a teenager. So Mother Sachi arranged Nimai's marriage with Lakshmi Priya. As when they were young on the banks of river Ganga, they used to play, and mischievous Nimai used to shed water over them and play with them. And later on, Mother Sachi married them together. So Lakshmi Priya was a very faithful wife, and she was brilliant. But at this time, Nimai Pandit had a responsibility of maintaining the family because his father had passed away. So he decided that beside running the school, he would visit East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. Places near Sylhet, he was going to visit because he had heard that from there you can preach, and it's a very, very nice preaching grounds. So he left for Bangladesh, where we call it Bangladesh now, but in those days it was East Bengal. And yes, he was a teenager. He was very, very beautiful. He had a golden form, and everybody, once they looked at him, they couldn't take their eyes off him. And he was a scholar. So he successfully went from place to place, and he collected a lot of donations as well, golden water pots and silver water pots. It's quite a good donation he collected. During his travels in the East Bengal, he met a person, Tapan Mishra, on one of the occasions. Now, Tapan Mishra had been trying to find out the meaning of life. What is this? Who am I, and why am I this? He had read so many books on spiritual life, but he was very, very confused. And when he heard that there is a Nimai Pandit around in the area, and he can explain, he can diffuse all your confusion. So Tapan Mishra came to see Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya explained him, well, he was Nimai Pandit at the time. Nimai Pandit explained him that in Kali Yuga, a bookworm doesn't get anywhere. Bookworm doesn't get all the answers. By reading books, one cannot become a bhakti yogi. The only way is to chant Krishna's name. Hare Nam eva kevalam, kalau nastik eva nastiv gatir anyatha. The only way is eva nasti, no. Only way is to chant Hare Krishna. And he said to Tapan Mishra, this is what you want for your success. Chant Hare Krishna. Tapan Mishra was very, very impressed because most of his confusions were gone. So he wanted to go with Nimai Pandit to Navadvip. But Nimai Pandit said to him, no, you don't want to come with me. You go to Varanasi, which is Banaras, modern Banaras, and settle there. In due course of time, I will be visiting Vrindavan, so I will stop at Banaras and come and see you there. So Tapan Mishra had his family and he was proper job and everything there in East Bengal. But on the words of Nimai Pandit, he left everything and he moved to Banaras. And then he stayed there. In due course of time, Nimai, who was by then Lord Chaitanya, he did come to Banaras and he met Tapan Mishra. He stayed with him, took prasad at his place. This Tapan Mishra had a 2-year-old son who later on became Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. He's one of the Goswamis who were sent to Vrindavan by Lord Chaitanya to excavate the pastime Leela places, Leela sthalis of Radha and Krishna. But well, we'll go back to Nimai Pandit. When Nimai Pandit or Gauranga Sundar, he came back to Navadvip, he found that Lakshmi Priya had passed away. She was not able to handle the separation from him, and she passed away. Mother Sachi said, convinced Nimai Pandit to get married again. It was important, she said. So he listened to his mother and he married for the second time. And the second wife was a 15-year-old Vishnu Priya. She was a very nice, very austere and a pure devotee of Krishna. In due course of time, while running his school and all that, there was a time for the Sraddha. His father had passed away, and after certain time, one performs Sraddha during the Sraddha time, which comes a few time before Diwali times. So Nimai took some of his student friends and all of them traveled to Gaya. Now Gaya is a city which is on the bank of river Falgu. You can't see Falgu, it's just a little trickle of water, but they call it a river Falgu, which is in Bihar province. The Falgu is, the Gaya is famous for the temple, which is a Vishnu temple where there is a Lord Vishnu's feet there. And everyone who come for the Shraddha ceremony, make sure they visit there and pray that whoever they are praying for to be able to meet the Vishnu's feet. When he was moving around in Gaya, he met Ishwar Puri. Ishwar Puri had been traveling around, and during his travel, he had ended up in Gaya. And Nimai Pandit had come to do his father's Shraddha in Gaya. So in the Gaya, when they met, Nimai Pandit approached Ishwar Puri and requested initiation, which Ishwar Puri gladly gave. He said, okay, I will give you the mantra, Maha Mantra, and said to him that this mantra, please chant constantly. Gauranga Sundar was very, very happy. He took his initiation. A few days later, he came back to Ishwar Puri. He said, I don't know what kind of mantra you have given me. It's driving me mad. So I'm chanting around, dancing, I cry. I sometimes even fall on the ground. He said, it's making me mad. This chanting, it's very different. So Ishwar Puri smiled because sannyasis, they have their own emotions. He only smiled and he said, well, you continue chanting the Maha Mantra. With Maha Mantra, you will achieve perfection. This mantra will increase your attachment for Krishna. So go on chanting and induce others to chant. So that was induce others to chant was start a Sankirtan movement. And Lord Chaitanya listened to that instruction. Of all the instructions, he listened to this one. He had actually come down on the earth to do, but he had taken a guru because he was on the earth and it would be proper to do as a person, he did it. Now we come to the third phase of Lord Chaitanya. He was, this is about spreading the Chaitanya, the Sankirtan movement. After taking initiation and all that, Nimai and his student friends, they all returned to Navadvip. But the students had a difficulty bringing Lord Chaitanya home because he would start chanting anytime. and he would jump and dance and then forget about going home. And the student had to bring him home. He came home an intoxicated person. He was intoxicated with devotion. Even all the people around in Navadvip saw that he was a changed person. He was not an arrogant Nimai Pandit anymore. He was Gauranga Sundar, Gaura and beautiful. He was Gauranga Sundar. In the school, he began to teach his students the Sanskrit alphabet, all the syllables with the meaning of Krishna. They would, whatever he said would mean something, it would have something to do with Krishna. He would talk about the charms, attributes, and pastimes of Krishna constantly. The Vaishnavas noticed that this transformation it's a bit on an extreme. A lot of students didn't like that. They were used to their old system, and they sort of protested. But Gauranga Sundar said, no, you can go to another school if you want. With me, Krishna will be the center of attention. And that's how it was to be. A lot of people, a lot of students and other people, they didn't respect him because he was chanting too much, which just happens. Even now it happens to people. Very quickly, Gauranga was spending all his time talking to the Vaishnavas during the day and holding chanting Sankirtan in the evening. He would assist the Vaishnavas carry the fruit baskets, the clothes, puja items, scandalwood paste. He would do all these little services to Vaishnavas. He was trying to be very, very, Vaishnav-like, which his mother, Gauranga's mother, noticed. And Sachi Devi was worried. What's happening to this boy? This boy is not behaving properly since he came back from Gaya. And she wanted to talk to somebody. Now, Srivas Pandit was very close, a neighbor. Now, if you go to Navdeep Dham, even now, you will find that Srivas Angan and Yogpit are not that far. They are quite close. So they were, even in those days, 500 years ago, they were neighbors. And Sachi Devi confided him, look, this boy, he's just chanting Hare Krishna all the time. And he's saturated with the Krishna consciousness. And his behavior is becoming a bit worrying. And Srivas Thakur said, well, I'll talk to him. You don't worry. One day, Gaurang's best friend was Gadadhar Pandit, and they were together. And just out of habit, Gaurang said to Gadadhar, where is Krishna? I can't find Krishna. Look, where's Krishna? So just to keep peace and quiet, Gadadhar said, he's in your heart. But Gauranga Sundar took it literally. With his nails, he was trying to pull off the skins near his heart. He was trying to get to Krishna. He said, I want to excavate Krishna out of my heart. And Gadadhar had to say, well, don't worry, Krishna will come out of your heart as and when he wants to. You don't worry about it. So seeing the way Gadadhar pacified Gauranga, Sachi Devi was very impressed, and Sachi Devi requested Gadadhar, please stay with my son all the time, because he doesn't look after himself. You may be able to look after him. One day, Gauranga Sundar was taking his bath in Ganga. Now, Gangaji, if you go to Navdeep, even now, Srivas Angan is far away from Ganga. There's quite a bit of distance between Srivas Angan and where the Ganges flows. And so, Srivas Thakur was sitting in his home praying to Lord Nrsingadev to be able to get some protection from the very difficult king and difficult people. Gauranga Sundar was in the river taking his bath. And then he suddenly ran. He said, I am he, I am he. And he ran all the way to Srivas Thakur's house and told him, I am he. Who are you praying to? I'm he. So Thakur opened his eyes and to see what's going on. And that's when Gauranga Sundar showed his Vishnu form to Srivas Thakur. It was a lotus, disc, conch, and club. And the family, Srivas Thakur's family came round, and Gauranga Sundar put his feet on the head of the members of the family. He showed the mercy that way. And he said that it's time we started the Sankirtan movement. It's time to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. It wasn't immediate though. Srivas Thakur was skeptical, but because of the Muslim ruler. But Gauranga Sundar said, I live in everyone's heart. Without me, a blade of grass is not going to move. We want to start a Sankirtan movement, and let's start from your home. So then Srivas Thakur agreed. He said, okay. So every day in the evening, they were holding the Sankirtan. They were holding the Sangha and they would dance. Only the invited people were in the Sankirtan at the time. Everyone wasn't allowed in. Srivas Thakur had a young daughter, a young niece. He's Srivas Thakur's sister's daughter. It was a sister's daughter. And her name was Narayani. She was only 4-year-old. But Gauranga Sundar gave her the mercy. The mercy was so overflowing that when Narayani grew up, she had a son called Vrindavan Das Thakur, who wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Because Narayani, as a child, she had witnessed all these Sankirtan dances and all that in the house of Srivas Thakur. She was able to relay all that to Vrindavan Das Thakur, who put it on in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. One day, one of them, I think a son died during the Kirtan going on. Srivas Thakur's son died, and the members of the family were very upset. But Srivas Thakur was very strict. He told no one to cry, no one to make any disruption in the Kirtan that was going on. Lord Chaitanya was doing the Kirtan, he was dancing. It was very important not to make any noise. But later at night, Lord Chaitanya found out that a son had passed away, and that was Srivas Thakur's son. So he went to the body where the son was, and he brought back the soul, and he asked the soul to come back. And the boy came to life. And the boy said, I came here for a purpose. This was my life span. And now that I have finished, I have to go. And then he passed away again. That soul left the body. And the members of the family realized that the body and the soul are different. When the karma finishes, a person goes. And the Sankirtan continued. And the Kirtan continued. It was private Kirtan. It was in a private house. Only invited people were in. And no one was allowed. No troublemaker was allowed. And now Srivas Thakur had a mother-in-law. She was skeptical about the devotional service. So she wasn't allowed in, even though she was a mother-in-law. They were very strict about it. I think the time is coming up, so I have to be fast. Sorry. Once Nityananda came to Navadvip, and he stayed at Nandan Acharya's home. Now, Lord Chaitanya had been waiting. He was holding the kirtans and everything at Srivas Thakur's house, but he was waiting for Lord Nityanand to come to Navadvip. Now, Lord Nityanand was in Vrindavan at the time, But among the sadhus, when they were talking that the Lord is going to descend on the earth and all that, he had heard and he realized that the Lord has descended. So he had quickly come to Navadvip, but he stayed at Nandan Acharya's house. Somehow, Gauranga Sundar realized that Nityananda is here in Navadvip now. So he asked Haridas Thakur and Srivas Thakur, go to every place and find out where is Lord Nityananda. I want to go and see him. And both of them went to everywhere in Mayapur, everywhere in Navadvip, in the whole area. And they came home in the evening without any success. They said, no, we can't find him. So Lord Chaitanya got up, walked straight to Nandan Acharya's house, and Lord Nityananda was there. And both the lords met, and there were tears, and they had met after a long time, long awaited meeting. But the problem was, Nityananda, when he was only young boy, he was taken away with the sadhus. So he had been traveling all over India, mostly in North India and Vrindavan. So he was speaking Hindi. Lord Chaitanya was speaking Bengali. So both of them were trying to talk to each other, but one was speaking Hindi, one was speaking Bengali. It took them a little while to find out what's what, but they were very happy to see each other anyway. Just a few days after Lord Nityananda came to Navadvip, it was a Guru Purnima. We call it Vyas Purnima or Guru Purnima. And on the Purnima, all the normal, in those days, all the Brahmins will get together. They will have a photo of Vyasadev and offer the prayers and glorify Vyasadev. This time, they were going to hold the Guru Purnima at Srivas Thakur's house. And Srivas Thakur was in charge of the celebration of Guru Purnima. He arranged everything. When the puja had begun, he took a garland and instructed Lord Nityananda to go offer that to Vyasadev. The Lord Nityananda looked at the garland, looked at Vyasa photo, and he looked at Lord Chaitanya. He stood up and he walked straight to Lord Chaitanya, and he put the garland on his shoulders. He said, even Ved Vyas has got a guru, and this is his guru. This is Gaur Leela. It's very, very sweet. Thereupon, Lord Chaitanya manifested his six-armed form. The Shadbhuj form was exhibited at this time on Guru Purnima, when Lord Chaitanya was recognized by Lord Nityananda. He held Vishnu's conch, disc, club, and lotus. That's 4 arms. And the other 2 6 arms, he was holding Lord Balram's plow and a club. Now when we see Lord Chaitanya's other Shadbhuj form, it is Lord Ramchandra's bow and arrow, Lord Krishna's disc and the flute, and a sannyasi, like Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi. He's a danda, sannyas dand and kamandalu. That is also Shadbhuj form. But he was there, he exhibited his first Shadbhuj form to the friends in this way. We got still time. I'll have to be fast. Another day at Srivas' house, Gaurang sat in a place reserved for the worship of Vishnu. And he remained there for 21 hours while the devotee worshipped him with flowers, tulsi leaves, Ganga water, sweets, and suitable offerings. This one is the Mahaprakash Leela I'm talking about. I hope everybody will know something about it. I'll have to put this one later. He assumed the forms, for this Leela, he assumed the different forms of his different avatars. Each devotee who was sitting there was called by Gauranga Sundar in the way the devotee wanted to see him. Like Murari Gupta, he used to love the form of Lord Ramchandra. So he was able to see Ramchandra in Gaur Sundar. But Kulavech Sridhar, he could see Gaurang Sundar on his own. And some of them could see Krishna. So he was able to exhibit in this Mahaprakash Leela. He also called each devotee to his to the front, and he told them what was in the devotee's mind, and when Lord Chaitanya had helped him. Like Kolavech Sridhar, he asked Kolavech Sridhar, "What would you want? I can give you." But Kolavech Sridhar said that I don't want anything material. I just want to be your servant. You be my master, birth after birth. That's all I want. Then Gangadas Pandit was called, and the Lord reminded him that once Gangadas had considered drowning his whole family in the Ganga, because he had wanted to go from one side of Ganga to the other bank, but it was evening time, and the Muslim boatmen were not to be trusted so much. So rather, he would drown his family in the Ganga. But then a lone boatman came along from somewhere, and he was able to take Gangadas's family from one side to the other side of Ganga. And Lord Chaitanya told Gangadas that lone boatman was me. I took your family, and I know that you were about to drown your family. Stuff like that he told, because no one knew, only Lord Chaitanya knew. Murari Gupta, he was a doctor, and he was called. And Murari Gupta said, I want to always remain your servant and the servant of your associates. But I like Lord Ramchandra's form. I can only worship Lord Ramchandra. And Gauranga Sundar said, yes, that is okay. Haridas Thakur was called, and Gaurang Sundar showed him the marks of the whip on his own back. And Haridas Thakur saw that he hadn't been hurt at all. And what was happening? Well, Gaurang Sundar had taken all the pain on his own back. In this place, Mukund Datta wasn't called. And devotees decided, why isn't Mukund Datta being called? And they asked the Lord said, no, he's mixing with the impersonalist, and he's got impersonalist views. I don't want to see him. So Mukund Datta was broken-hearted. All the devotees in the room were called. He wasn't the only one called, because he had been making association with impersonalists. So some devotees asked Gauranga Sundar, what will happen? Has he got any chance of seeing you? So Gauranga Sundar said, yes, in 10 million lifetimes, he'll be able to see him. So Mukund Datta started jumping up and down. He was so happy. Okay, after 10 million births, I will be able to see Gaura. And he was jumping about, dancing in glee. And when Lord Chaitanya heard that, he said, yes, I'll see him now, because he's got that determination to achieve God. I'll see him now. Now, this particular Leela is a Mahaprakash Leela. And this Leela, outsiders were not allowed in. The Sankirtan movement was then brought outside. This was inside Srivas Thakur's house. Later on, they started bringing out the Kirtan parties outside. They used to go in the morning, in a Brahma Muhurat time. They would go out and chant Hare Krishna. And then we'll know that sooner they met the Nawab Hussain, who broke their mridanga and all that. And then Lord Chaitanya led the movement. What movement do we call it? He defeated Nawab Hussain Shah for breaking up the mridanga. And Nawab Hussain Shah then wrote it down that no one from my family would ever bring any problem to the Sankirtan movement. That's about it. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, whose arms extend down to their knees, who have golden yellow complexions and who inaugurated the congregational chanting of holy names. Their eyes resemble the petals of lotus. They are the maintainers of all living entities. They are the best brahmanas, the protectors of religious principles for this age, and the benefactors of the universe, and most merciful of all incarnations. And that one is sung as Ajanulambita Bhujau Kanakavadatau Sankirtanai Kapitarau Kamalayatakshav Vishwambarau Dvijavarau Yugadharma Palau Vande Jagat Priyakarau Karunavatarau. Thank you. Hare Krishna. It's 6 o'clock now. So
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Wow. That you really immersed us in the Leelas. Thank you so much.
Gaura Leela is very, very sweet.
It is.
It can't be done in 1 hour. It will take years to finish. It's so lovely.
Yeah, but at least you took us through the various Leelas, so we have a gist of it. For us, we are beginners. We haven't heard a lot about all these Leelas. So for us, it is really enlightening. And I know it is very late here in Eldoret, but people, all of them stayed on to listen to all these Leelas. So I'm really grateful to everybody. Are there any comments or questions anybody would like to ask? We still have 2 minutes if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Or corrections. If I would say something wrong, please correct me. I'm open to corrections.
I think it is quite late, Mataji, so I'm sure there are no corrections. At least I've heard about these Leelas for the first time. Few I've heard, but most of them I haven't heard. So thank you so much for enlightening us. I'll hand over to Divyesh Prabhuji, who will close the session for today. Divyesh Prabhuji. Maybe he's having internet challenges. Avinash Prabhuji, can you close the session, please? Avinash Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So yeah, I was listening to it while working. So actually I was immersed in the Leela as well. So lots and lots of, like Mataji said, Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela can go on and on for, he can speak for ages and ages for that. For 1 hour, yeah, that was good enough. It was good enough. At least we got a flavor of it. So Vraj Kishori Mataji, thank you for taking us to Mayapur Dham and the Navadvip Dham and giving us the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So all glories to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we look forward to the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthday on Sunday, and probably lots and lots of people have got some flavor of it now. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vraj Kishori Mataji, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we chant Haribol 3 times?
So we can glorify Mataji with either 3 Haribols. Shall we do 3 Haribols for a change?
Yes, let's
Okay.
do Chaitanya.
Okay. Okay. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. All glories to Vraj Kishori Mataji.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpa tarubhya cha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Okay.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.